Hey guys, Casual Crono here. In this character development video, we are going to cover Alma AS. I've had a few people make requests covering her. Alma AS, first and foremost, is a tank. If you look at her skills, they are pretty much tank related. She has Refraction Bullet, which inflicts rage and gives her a counterattack. It also improves the party's type resistance. Luster Glare is a magic attack as well. It inflicts elemental break and it changes based on the target's weak point. So by default it's a crystal attack. If, for example, the target is weak to wind, then Luster Glare would change into a wind attack. It also improves type attack and party's critical rate and everything for 3 moves. And whenever it actually hits a weak point, it stacks this thing called Arcana, which we'll get into in a little bit. You will notice that Luster Glare strength is based on the user's power. Refraction Bullet is the same way, power. So these are magic attacks that are based on power. If you want to build her to do a lot of damage, you don't want to give her intellect. You want to give her power increasing abilities. The counterattack itself that you can get, it'll do a crystal magic attack on all enemies, but it also restores the party's health and mana. And whenever she counters, she gains another stack of this Arcana. And then there's this other little thing down here that says Alchemaic High. Strength is increased by 15% or 15 times, and in the counterattack, the restore amount is doubled. For Luster Glare, the elemental break, instead of being 3 stacks, becomes 6. So what's this whole Alchemaic High and Arcanas and all of that? Really quick, before we fight the test dummy, the grasta, if you build her for damage, are usually the Power of Pain series. So Power of Pain with Bullseye, Power of Pain Rose with Thorns, Gleaming Power of Pain from the Astral Archives, which improves pain and crystal type damage. So this is a good mid-game type gear situation. If you don't have the Vitality badge, you could always give her a Power badge or anything else that might improve her damage somehow. So let's talk about this whole Arcana and Alchemaic High and all this stuff.
Time to try out my new formula.
When you enter a fight with Alma AS in the front row, the first 2 turns, she is in what's called Alchemaic High. It improves her power, intellect, and speed. She gains guard, which means she takes damage for all allies, and she also gains hold ground, which means she can't die. It's not like the 9 lives ore where the first time that you die it gets used up. This is a permanent hold ground. So basically, for 2 turns, she is invincible and taking damage for your party. In order to further boost that, if you cast Refraction Bullet on the first turn, you will put Rage on the enemy. So now single target attacks will also go to her. So Alchemaic High, after 2 turns, goes away. And you're probably thinking, okay, this is really awesome. She's really powerful. She's invincible. How do I get it back? Well, let's go ahead and get out of Alchemaic High. Once she is out of Alchemaic High, each attack that she does gives her 1 Arcana. And you'll notice in the description, if it's a weak point hit, she gains an additional Arcana. So if I cast Luster Glare on this turn, she hit it once, and if I check her, she should have 1 stack of Arcana. Well, once she hits 5 stacks, she'll go back into the Alchemaic High state and become invincible again for 2 turns. However, I hate to make a drug reference, but you kind of build up a tolerance level the more you do a drug. It kind of is the same approach. The more times you enter the Alchemaic High, the longer it takes before you can go back into it. There are a few shortcuts if you do Lunatic, for example. If you're not in an Alchemaic High state, it gives you 5 Arcana. And so now she has 6 Arcana. She needs 10 to reach the second Alchemaic High. The first one was used up with the first 5 stacks. So we're on the last turn of the test dummy, so I can't wait it out for 4 more turns. But it's based on per hit. So, and if she counterattacks, she gains 1 Arcana per counterattack as well. Again, the test dummy doesn't fight back, so it's a little hard to show these particular abilities. But if the monster's weak to Alma, or if you're doing a lot of counterattacks, the Arcana stacks will increase a little bit faster. If you're not fighting something that is weak to Alma, or you're just not getting counterattacks all the time, like if the boss takes 1 turn to buff, he's not or she is not attacking Alma, and thus, unless Alma is attacking, you're not getting any Arcana stacks. So you can usually count on 2 or 3 Alchemaic Highs per battle. If the battle goes on for a very long time, you can eventually get more Alchemaic Highs, but it takes a while. So let's go ahead and wrap this up.
Wide open.
There she went twice, so that would have been 2 Arcana stacks. And she went twice because she was lunaticked. So the bottom line with Alma, she starts off in an Alchemaic High, and then once that runs out, you can start stacking Arcana. Once you reach 10 Arcana stacks, you go back into Alchemaic High. After that Alchemaic High runs out, then you need 20 stacks of Arcana to enter the next Alchemaic High. When she's in her Alchemaic High, she does a lot more damage, and she restores more health in counterattacks. She has more elemental breaks, and so forth. So it's good to use her when she's in Alchemaic High. That, and she's pretty much invincible. Alma has one other feature about her. If you have her paired with crystal users, she can also deploy a crystal zone. Well, if you have 2 or 3 crystal users, and then start a fight, you'll start the fight in a regular crystal zone. There you go. Which of course makes all crystal magic attacks and regular attacks that much stronger. If you have 4 crystal users in the front row, something different happens. When you have 4 crystal users, Alma awakens the zone. So now we have an awakened crystal zone. There's one problem with this. As you all probably realize, when you have an awakened zone, it doesn't last forever. And the awakened zone that she has only lasts for the first 3 turns of the battle. On the 4th turn, there's no more awakened crystal zone, and she doesn't have a skill that allows you to put it back. And even if you try to move her out and move her back in,
I'm not going to doubt myself any longer.
she basically just reduces the enemy's defenses. She doesn't deploy a crystal zone the way her normal style does. So if you start a fight with 4 crystal users and the zone gets used up, you don't have a way to put crystal zone back, at least with her. There are, of course, other characters like the Lily ES that are a great partner for her because they can redeploy a crystal zone. But Alma by herself is unable to when she's in her AS style, so you have to rely on someone else. Since she does magic damage, a magic zone is also a good source of damage for her. And since she is a tank, you could look into that really uncommon one, the defensive wall zone, which basically reduces damage for everybody, yourself included. So you don't have to be in a crystal zone to make use of Alma, but if you want a repeated crystal zone, or if your awakened zone gets broken, whatever, you do need to have extra support somewhere else in order to redeploy a crystal zone. Alma AS is first and foremost a tank. She has the ability to protect her team for the first 2 turns, and she is pretty much invincible during that time. So what kind of a free team can we build around her? Well, whenever you're building around a character, you want to go to their ability screen and check out their personality. She is a cat lover, she wears glasses, she has a bow, gun, alchemist, and crystal personality traits. She happens to be a magic damage dealing piercing character as well. First of all, in order to make sure that a crystal zone is deployed, we have to pick a free character that is also a crystal user. Well, Clart, either of his styles, can work for this. His normal style has Terre Luminaire, which improves crystal type attacks of all party members and it stacks. So it's a great ability to spam a couple of times, technically up to 4, in order to try and maximize crystal damage. He also does have a crystal type attack, Soul Aerolith, which attacks all enemies and increases in damage if you use it over and over. So Soul Aerolith would be a great one to use during like an AF gauge. And then he has things like improves type resistance, or giving barriers to all party members, restoring their health, restoring mana. So the third skill could kind of be whatever you want it to be. You could also reduce the intellect and restore all statuses of party members, so that third ability could kind of be whatever. As far as gear for Clart, I just gave him general mid-game gear. Plasma Rod, his personal armor, an int speed badge, 25 of each, and then 2 power of pains, and then an enhance if max HP crystal, which improves damage by 10% whenever any crystal users are at max health. Remember that Alma's reaction, her counterattack, restores health, so usually after 1 or maybe at most 2 counterattacks, she's back to full health. The other characters, we need someone to set pain. So Garum, even though he's not technically a free character, he was one of those characters that everyone had a choice with when going through the chapters, and he has a skill that inflicts pain and ignores target resistance, Caterus Sigfrigida. And I don't know if I pronounced that right, but we're just going to go with it. He's also a piercing character, so if there's a piercing zone, it's still helping him and Alma. So we have Garum for that, also equipped mid-game wise. Plasma Spear, Plasma Bangle, a power badge, which is 25 power. He has Robust Body Lance, Power of Gale Lance, Enhance if Max HP Lance. So nothing that helps Alma, just basically things that improves his survivability and improves his damage. For a third character, we have Partido. he has a few skills that can help. He's also a piercing character in case we do some type of piercing zone. He has Arrow of Fortune, which reduces enemies' power and intellect. He has Special Treatment, which improves type resistance for 5 turns for the party and can give them a regen. And then he also has Wild Stallion, which is a piercing attack, which can be spammed during an AF gauge because it attacks 4 times, but it restores party members' health and improves their max health. He does gain guard until the turn end if he uses that skill, so that is something to keep in mind because Alma automatically has guard. As far as back row characters, we haven't addressed Cat Lover, Glasses, or Gun. It just so happens that the free character Ash tier is Glasses and Gun, so she is a good person to hold those grasta. And then for the third grasta, since there's no fist users, you can kind of throw whatever. I put on one of those physical debuff resistance grastas, which improves the resistance by 15% for all party members. So that just leaves Cat Lover, and Bivette is a cat lover. And there are other free characters that are cat lovers as well, but since we have Clart on the team, who's a staff user, we can make use of Bivette's other positions and do things like Sound Body, giving Clart an extra 300 health, 50 mana. We could do, type attacks with staff and so forth as well. But Bivette's relatively common character, so you should have access to pretty much all of these characters except maybe Garum Barrel, depending on who your choice was, or if you had the opportunity for a choice, because that deal isn't always up. It's been up twice so far as of this recording. Sidekicks. We have Iridian, Defensive Iridian, and Kurobo. Defensive Iridian has an aura that activates whenever a party member takes damage, their type resistance goes up a little bit. So we know that Alma's going to take damage pretty much from the first turn onwards, so that will give her a little bit of type resistance. Kurobo, if we do fire damage, reduces an enemy's power and intellect by 25%, therefore decreasing the enemy's damage, thus improving Alma's survivability when she's not in her Alchemaic High. And Particio is a fire user. So as long as Particio uses one of his fire attacks, Kurobo's aura will kick in and the enemy will do less damage. As for Alma herself, remember that she can be geared either defensively or offensively. For mid-game, usually you can get away with offensive gearing. She has mid-game gear. She has the Void Bow, which gives her a critical rate of 100% and improves her type attack. She has the Ring of Might, which when maxed out improves her damage, I want to say by about 20% when she's at full health. And the Vitality Badge, which improves damage also by 20% at full health. Ring of might be 15%. I forgot, it's been a while. She has 3 Power of Pains, so 1 with Bullseye, 1 with Rose with Thorns, and the Gleaming Power of Pain from the Astral Archive Tome. So this would be mid-game gear. You can get pretty much all of it once you've gotten to the point where you have access to the underworld, another dungeon for the ores, and so forth. Remember that my Alma is Stellar Awakened fully. Yours may or may not be. As far as skills, I've picked all skills that do not involve her Kaleidoscope. Because if she's not Stellar Awakened, you don't have access to that anyway. So these are just common skills that you have access to, regardless on whether or not she is Stellar Awakened or not. So relatively free team, free sidekicks. Let's go test this out. A mid-level super boss, Dragon God, is available and happens to be weak to crystal. So we have crystal stance deployed because Alma is one of 2 characters who's a crystal user in the front row. We could use this first turn to go ahead and build up some stacks. We could do Terre Luminaire, which, while it's null to the Dragon God, does improve crystal type attacks for all party members and stacks 4 times. We can use Caterus Sigfragida to reduce the enemy's power and inflict pain. And we can go ahead and improve type resistance and then just attack like normal. So that's what we can do with the 3 of them in the AF gauge. Alma will go ahead and inflict rage with Refraction Bullet, and then she can Luster Glare. So we're going to do 2, 1, 3, 2, and then pretty much spam all ones. So 2, 1, 3, 2. 2, 1, 3, 2, and then all ones. The boss has a 50% HP stopper, which you can see that we just hit. Now here on turn 2, Alma is still in her Alchemaic High. You click on status, you can see. And she has 1 turn left with it. So on this turn, we'll just go ahead and reapply pain because otherwise it's null to everything else. We got 4 stacks of Terre Luminaire in, so we could do a crystal type magic attack. We could give ourselves a barrier. We'll just do the magic attack right now. We got special treatment in, so we could go ahead and do Arrow of Fortune to reduce the enemy's power and intellect. And in Alma's case, we're basically just waiting around for her to get hit. I could reduce the enemy's power further. We got Luster Glare and Refraction Bullet in. We have 6 stacks, and Geist Nebula can only take up 1. So we'll go ahead and Geist Nebula. And we actually don't want to use up those crystal stacks, so we'll go ahead and do Blessing of Luna for this turn. Alma counterattacks. And only needs 3 counterattacks to defeat the Dragon God. So here we're going to fight Suzette's True Manifest. This is the final fight, the level 11 one. We get a regular crystal zone right off the bat because we have 2 crystal users, thanks to Alma. We're going to go ahead and inflict rage and get counterattack. We're going to Demonic Thrust with Suzette just to weaken them. And we can do Terre Luminaire to improve crystal attacks. And we're going to improve type resistance and improve the party's health with special treatment. You'll notice each time Alma gets attacked, she counters. Now here on turn 2, we could always Brain Record and change to Suzette's weakness, if she has one. We can also Geist Nebula to reduce power and intellect. We could Luster Glare, and that also changes based on the enemy's weak point. So we're going to go ahead and Brain Record this turn. We can Dragon Assault. We can do a Terre Luminaire since that stacks. Or we could do Blessing of Luna if we wanted to give ourselves a barrier. We did special treatment, so we could do Arrow of Fortune. We could restore the team's health if we need to. Right now, we don't. And remember that Alma counterattacks for every single time she was hit. Now here on the third turn, Alma no longer is invincible. So this is where we need to start making sure that the enemies can't do that much damage. So we are going to improve type resistance again. We're going to demonic thrust again, so the extras have the debuff. We're going to give ourselves a barrier. And that should still be good, so we will Wild Stallion it.
Wide open! Behold, the ancient despair!
If we check her status, we can see that she does not have her Alchemaic High. So we are going to inflict. We're going to Luster Glare. We're going to Demonic Thrust again to reduce enemy's power. And we're going to go ahead and special treatment again.
Wide open!
Here, get back on your feet.
Oh, thank you. Complete news. Behold, the ancient despair! Oh. Oh.
We're going to Luster Glare, Dragon Assault, Tear Luminaire, and we're going to go ahead and restore the health. And there we go. Suzette's True Manifest defeated with Alma AS and basically a free team. I realize that Suzette's not technically free, and technically neither is Bivette. But that's an example of how you can make use of her counterattacks and build her so that she can do enough damage mid-game wise to defeat all sorts of manifest fights, super bosses, etc. In the previous examples, we geared Alma to be the damage dealer. Her counterattacks were her major source of damage. Typically, though, when you have a tank in the group, you usually set someone else up to be the damage dealer, and you build the tank to survive. Since Alma is basically invincible for 2 turns, a lot of people don't feel that it's important to give her a lot of health. If you can win the fight in 2 turns, it doesn't matter if she has 4,000 health or 10,000 health, because the fight's over, you win, and that's a perfectly valid strategy. However, when she loses her Alchemaic High, she's no longer invincible. And as far as tanks go, I find that she tends to be a little bit defensively behind the other tanks. So I feel it's also important to gear her for tanking for fights that last more than 2 or maybe 3 turns. So how I tend to gear her, the Lollipopper is a bow that if you upgrade it in Valeria can give her up to 2,000 extra health. It also improves her physical resistance to a degree. It does give her 9 lives, but I think that kind of gets lost in the Alchemaic High anyway. The Elpis Ring is a great item to give her. It improves her health, and it still gives her a little bit of a damage boost. If you don't want to use the Elpis Ring, things like the Oriental Ring, which improves type and physical resistance, are also good choices. And then I usually give her an HP plus speed halved badge from Toto's Theater World. I actually don't mind the reduction in speed, because a lot of times I have her paired up with other crystal attackers. And if she's the last person to go, then Luster Glare will put on Elemental Break Crystal at the very end of the turn. If it doesn't get dispelled, then at the start of the next turn, my attacker can go and make use of that crystal break. But that only happens if she is the last person to go, or basically the last person to do any type of crystal damage. For the rest of her gear, I tend to stick with tanking type stuff. Things like Power of Rebirth, Victory Celebration, things that give regen and MP regen. As far as ore, Light Shadow HP ore, in my case, works really well because she has over 50 shadow points. If you have under 50 shadow points, then the HP plus ore that you can get from Underworld, for example, is a good choice. I also stick with anything that gives 300 health, so the MP Consumption Bow gives 300 health, a little extra spirit boost for type damage. Reduction, anyway. And then HP Restore Bow. All of them have Light Shadow HP ore. If you're not familiar with the Light Shadow HP ore, you can buy it in Omegopolis, another dungeon. So if you run it enough, you can basically buy as many Light Shadow HP ores as you want. And if your characters have more than 50 light or shadow points, it gives you more health versus the HP ore from Underworld and Future Guerrilla, if I remember right. Aside from the Elpis Ring, most of this gear you can get relatively mid-game, later-ish mid-game. And if you have, for example, the Oriental Ring, that's pretty mid-game as well. So you can get her up to around, 9,000 health, 10,000 health, depending if she's Stellar Awakened or not, because some of the nodes improve her health as well. She gets 1,200, I think. HP. Yep. She can get 1,200 health from the Stellar Awakening board, plus a little more endurance and spirit and so forth, things that keep her alive. So that is how I tend to gear her as a tank. And with that much health, and things like power reductions, int reductions, barriers, type resistance improvements, and so forth, I try to make it so that way she can survive until she can eventually enter the next Alchemaic High. You've seen Alma used with a free team. Now, here is a more advanced team. It's my Crystal Super Boss team featuring Lily. This is a very powerful team. As soon as we switch to the right Annabelle. Basically, we have Alma, who is geared, as we did earlier, with the Lollipopper, Elpis Ring, HP badge, and then 3 grasta that all gave her health. The rest of the team is made up of all shadow characters, the Lily, Melissa, Mistrari. Lily has the Elpis Sword, Dryad Spangle, Power Badge, and Power of Pain series. Melissa has Singularity, Stamped Ring, and Speed Badge. She has the Power of Offense Crystal, which improves crystal damage for the entire party when you're in crystal stance. It also has Enhanced Max HP Crystal, which improves damage by 10% for all crystal users when they're at max health. Remember that Alma has a reactive attack that basically puts everyone at max health pretty much every turn. Mistrari has Robust Body West, Sound Body Bow, and Resonant Power Sound, or Shadow. The Sound Body Bow improves health by 300 and mana by 50 for all bow users, so she is giving Alma an additional 300 health. The Resonant Power Shadow improves damage for each shadow ally that's in the for a maximum, I believe, of 4 shadow allies. And we have an entire team full of shadow allies. Otherwise, she's equipped defensively. She has a Dark Spirit Bow, which gives her a little bit of resistance. She has the Mujima Ring, which decreases damage the longer the fight goes. And she also has an HP plus, but an MP halved badge. The Robust Body West, by the way, improves health and mana for all West characters. It just so happens the Little Lily is a West character, so the other grasta is not necessarily helping Alma in this case. Back row characters, Melina has 3 grasta that are beefing up the Lily's damage, and Annabelle has Power of Crystal Sword, which improves the Lily's damage. Sidekicks, we have Tetra and Moke. Tetra will activate his aura when HP drops below 80%, which, as you've seen, Alma takes a lot of damage, usually the very first and second turns, so his aura is almost always activated immediately. It improves her health, it improves her mana, and it improves her resistances. And then we have Moke in order to allow Lily to attack with her sword and heart. So this is an advanced team. It takes a little while to collect these characters. Annabelle technically is not required. Any sword user can equip that. But otherwise, it does take a little bit of luck to get the rest of them. So let's see this team in action that can showcase Alma's tanking ability. To showcase Alma's tanking ability against a much harder boss, we are going to attempt the Shadow of the Swordsman. According to the wiki, it's a level 10.9 super boss. Since we have a full team of crystal users, we start off with Awakened Crystal Zone. We're going to go ahead and blow the AF bar to set up some things. We're going to do 1 Promised Land and then Photon Messiah. We're going to do 1 Glint Gale and Hornet Hail. We're going to do pretty much nothing, maybe 1 Healing Lore and then Hakam Chets. And we'll do 1 Refraction followed by Luster Glare. So all 2s followed by all 1s. 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. The boss has multiple HP stoppers. And we hit the first one. He tries to defeat my team, but Alma survives since she's in her Alchemea Kai. Now for turn 2, we can blow the AF gauge and do Sword and Heart. And we'll go ahead and Hornet Hail as well. And we'll Geist Nebula while we're at it. Reduce his attack power even more. He again tries to defeat Alma, but since this is the second turn of the Alchemaic High, he's unable to. And we've knocked out the second HP stopper. So, we are forced to Photon Messiah. We can Glint Gale to keep that going. We've done the 4 stacks of Hakam Chets. There they are. So she can start singing. And at this point, we can go ahead and either redo Refraction Bullet or do Luster Glare. Alma's going to counterattack, keeping the team healed. Moke can now rampage. We can switch back to Tetra. And Thalili can Sword and Heart again. We'll go ahead and Hornet Hail and Luster Glare, but as long as Thalili goes, the battle should pretty much be over.
No problem.
And that's an example of how using Alma as a tank, especially effectively during those first 2 turns, can set up certain boss fights to be fairly simple. To showcase the last of Alma's AS's abilities, I'm going to show you how Kaleidoscope can be used. It's her stellar ability. It grants Link to a single party member and gives them Barrier Pierce. So if I cast Kaleidoscope, for example, on Thalili, she'll have 3 moves that can Barrier Pierce. If I use it in a Stellar Burst, Link is given to the entire team, and they all get 3 moves of Barrier Piercing. So we're going to blow the AF gauge. We're going to do Promised Land, Glint Gale, Refraction Bullet, and then spam all 1s and try to get the gauge up. So we're going to do 2, 2, 1, 2, and then all 1s. 2, 2, 1, 2, and then all 1s. The boss right now has a barrier. Alright. We have 26 barriers. You'll notice the boss's health has not gone down any. We're going to cast Kaleidoscope. We're going to cast Hornet Hail. And we're not going to cast Sword and Heart. We're going to Photon Messiah it instead. And you'll see, despite the 26 barrier stacks, after Kaleidoscope triggers, damage is going to start decreasing. Once the burst is over, we're going to resume, and if we get the boss down to its HP stopper, I might try to work in a few other skills.
Our swords stand united and pure.
Now you see the health starting to decrease. So despite there being a barrier, we basically just chewed right through it. And because Alma is pretty much invincible the first turn, all of that damage went to her, and it didn't phase her one bit. So now, the boss has restored the barrier. we are going to Luster Glare. We're going to go ahead and start singing. I think we worked in everything we needed to work in, so we'll do a Nephrite boost just in case. And we're going to go ahead and Photon Messiah it. This is turn number 2, so Thalilius has 2 turns left of sword wielding savior state, and Alma has 1 turn left of Alchemia Kai. So Alma's reaction has already healed back up the team. Here on the 3rd turn, she's no longer in her Alchemia Kai. I could Kaleidoscope and give that to Thalilili. However, on the 3rd turn, this boss does a knockback, and since I've cast Rage, the first person he's going to knock back is going to be Alma. So it doesn't really matter, honestly, what I cast with her. So let's just Luster Glare. We are going to Hornet Hail. We're going to start off with Photon Messiah, and then actually we're just going to do Sword and Heart and finish up this fight. So and here we go, Sword and Heart. Boss is defeated. So that was an example of using a Stellar Burst Kaleidoscope to give everyone barrier piercing, and that allowed me to save Thalilili's barrier piercing attack until after the HP stopper. In summary, Alma AS is a wonderful tank. She has the ability to automatically deploy a crystal stance. She has the ability to tank by inflicting rage. Her counterattacks heal the team. Her Luster Glare puts down Elemental Break, by default crystal, but it could change based on the enemy's weak point. And her Alchemia Kai allows her to survive all sorts of attacks. It's particularly fun. I've seen videos, and I've done it myself, of the Ukwaji clan. If the stars align and they're not all null to crystal or piercing or any of that kind of stuff, Alma's counterattacks have taken down the Ukwaji clan, and I've seen a few other really creative videos making use of her. So if you get her, she excels most when she's paired with other crystal users, and you can build her either as a tank or as a DPS. I tend to stick with the high HP and let someone else DPS, as you saw in the recent 2 fights. But, you know, it's your game. There's no real wrong way to build people. So if you get her, you have gained a wonderful tank and an excellent player overall. So I hope this helps you. Casual Crono, signing out.